Before she told us, really, there was an actual crisis. I don't know if you have heard that. We were informed by her last week that there was a 5-year-old girl shot. And after the girl was shot by a police officer, the crowd killed the police officer on the street. So and there were riots in the region, and she was out on the streets. Also other people who are participating actually in our training were out and tried to calm down and mediate and moderate. And she said because of this there were some riots, that the problem is that they cut down internet. So other than it is hard to have internet connection anyway in this region from time to time, now the internet was really shut down. So that is why she had to look for a modem.
I greet you all. It is all protocol duly observed. It is my singular pleasure today to talk to you about the work of a lady and many other women. It's a pity we had internet shutdown. There is so much expectation for this presentation. And if I just sit and fold my arms, that will not speak good of the leader that I am, of the community woman peace builder or mediator that I am. So I had to go from one office to the other, asking, pleading if people could help me, with their internet connections. And I found out that the situation was similar everywhere. So I am at the 6th office where I went to, and there, luckily enough, I met somebody who was having a complete different modem from what we are using, and that is what I am using now. So I'm speaking to you out of my natural environment, which is my office, when I want to talk to people of high caliber like you. It's not every day that we get to see or meet people such as you, listen to us, the locals, we who are at community level trying to make sure that the ordeals which we live, every day with the rest of the population are minimized, because we try every day to de-escalate the conflict. Now, this day I will be talking to you, I'll be entreating you on the topic of the efforts of local women peace builders in managing the Anglophone crisis in the Northwest and Southwest region of Cameroon. Now, for me to put it in context, we're going to have an introduction of those efforts which the women have been making, and we're going to look at some challenges, recommendations. Cameroon is made up of 10 regions. 8 are French-speaking, while 2 are English-speaking. We call them the Anglophone regions, the Northwest and the Southwest regions. I am in the Southwest region, one of the 2. And life was normal 5 years ago. We were moving on naturally, going on with our daily chores without any worry, a part of the routine worries of high levels of poverty, trying to carry out developmental initiatives in the communities, fighting HIV and AIDS. Then one morning it dawned on us that there is a change in what we usually knew. And what was that change? We discovered that guns were turning. And why were they turning? We started asking ourselves the question. And that is a little story I'm going to tell you today, which led many of our women to the street, lamenting, advocating, educating, and what have you. So it is all about the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, which started in 2016 when lawyers and teachers took to the streets as a result of long-standing socioeconomic grievances and political marginalization of Cameroon's Anglophone population by the Francophone-dominated government. After 4 years, the war in both regions had no end in sight. Now we are going to the 5th year. The conflict has led to children being refused access to school due to the ban imposed on schools by the non-state armed groups. So we call those who are advocating for separation, for secession, we call them using the humanitarian jargon, which is popularly known to us as the non-state armed groups. The collapse of the health system in most conflict-affected communities, destruction of properties, arrest, killings, emotional and psychosocial torture, and kidnappings from both warring parties, causing huge displacement. An escalation of violence in the past 4 years has brought the country to the brink of civil war with the social and humanitarian consequences. This conflict has caused more than 712,000 displacements, over 60,000 refugees in neighboring Nigeria and other countries, over 3,000 deaths and 300,000 returnees. And now the burdens caused by the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic is not sparing us. In the face of all this, and in the absence of adequate mitigating strategies, there is continuous and progressive devastating consequences on the civilian population with rising casualty, and it is women and children who are the ones bearing the brunt of the conflict, paying a heavy price for that which they never bargained for. They who form majority of the population have been rendered helpless as they see their livelihoods destroyed, deprived of their shelters, burying their children and husbands, seeing many of the surviving children resort to armed robbery or becoming members of the non-state armed groups, forced to live in the bushes with all the dangers and elements of nature that do not act in their favor. The reason why women's voices were not heard in this conflict, but finally they decided to move from passive to active voices so as to contribute in ending the ongoing crisis through peace actions, piece by piece. What then are these efforts which these women have been carrying out? It may interest you to know that they were the forgotten voices. They were asked to shut up. But because it is not given, it is says, we the women decided to stand up for that which we believe is the right thing to do in the face of such a big calamity which had befallen us. And so, the work of women peace builders, leading grassroots efforts within the current context, cannot be overemphasized, because despite being significantly burdened by the crisis, though their work is often not being documented or recognized as peace-building work, the women in the Anglophone Cameroon have claimed their agency by becoming humanitarians, peace builders, and mediators. They did this by creating safe spaces and networks where women could articulate the burdens of the conflict, analyze the dynamics of this conflict, and coordinate to take action. Some examples of this efforts are, though not limited to what I'm going to give you now. On the 5th of May, 2018, Reach Out, that is my organization, organized women of both regions into a task force that has been in continuous advocacy for resolution. We had previously worked in one area of Cameroon called the Bakassi Peninsula, which was in conflict with Nigeria. So Cameroon was in conflict with Nigeria. And as a result of that, there were many casualties. And nobody was courageous enough to go to those places. And when this was reported to me, and traditional rulers, religious rulers, the women most especially, and the youth came to me and said, we heard about all the work you've been doing in other areas. Can you come and help us salvage the situation? I decided to go with my organization, and then we integrated the Bakassi program, in the Bakassi issue, into our programs. And we were the lone organization that took up the courage to go there, empower the women, and the women became active voices. And today, 12 years past today, these women today are mayors, big entrepreneurs, they're into parliament, in the Senate. They are into many governance instances today as a result of the empowerment which we gave them. So when we look at this conflict, the Anglophone conflict, we said to ourselves, what can we do? This conflict is not like the Bakassi crisis. It's not like the Bakassi conflict, because this was Cameroon fighting Nigeria. But here we have a difficult situation before us, Cameroonians versus Cameroonians. And because of this, there is need for drastic measures and a well or carefully planned actions. If not, our advocacy will go nowhere. And as a result of that, we said the Reach Out alone will not be able to do it. As they did in Bakassi, they will bring other civil society organizations headed by women. And this is what we did on the 5th of May, 2018. And then we had this voice space, which is called the Northwest, the Southwest Northwest Women's Task Force. And immediately after that, they started with public lamentation campaigns and public peaceful marches in both regions to denounce killings, kidnappings, lootings, and destruction of properties. We held a peace march in one of the towns called Kumba, where 7 children were killed, with over 3,500 women to denounce the killing of these 7 children in their classroom at the Mother Francisca International Bilingual Academy in Kumba, as I earlier said. We planned for 300 women to come and march with us, but the number which came out, 3,500, was indicative enough of the need to have this conflict brought to an end, of the need to mediate so that we bring this conflict to an end, mediating between the government and the non-state armed groups. We carried out broad-based media campaigns using conventional media channels, traditional communication systems, and social media. We held press conferences to amplify our voices and articulate our cause. We carried out advocacy meetings with both the state and non-state armed groups. We participated in the pre-consultation prior to the major national dialogue, where I led a delegation of 28 women to the Prime Minister. We were at the hearing, we were invited for the hearing at the UN Security Council on the humanitarian crisis in Cameroon and engaged in humanitarian response. I will say your humble servant before you was the first voice to be heard at the United Nations Security Council with regards to the humanitarian crisis in Cameroon. And if I want to give an example of humanitarian response carried out, I can just say that my organization alone, which was the pioneer organization to have started humanitarian response in our region before extending to the other region, has been able to serve more than 450,000 persons in need within affected communities of the Northwest, Southwest, and Littoral regions. We have had so many calls, we've made so many calls for ceasefire. We've carried out COVID-19 awareness campaigns and support. And then we've been able to provide psychosocial support to the affected of the armed conflict as counselors for peace and social healing. Finally, the last but not the least, in July 2021, that is from the 29th to 31st, we had the ever first National Women's Peace Convention in Cameroon, where women were drawn from the 10 regions. We planned originally for 1,000 women, but finally we received 1,500 women because the interest, to participate was very high. Why do we call it the ever first National Women's Peace Convention in Cameroon? It's because when we created SNOWT on the 5th of May 2000, one voice space, one platform. The networks, coalitions, and platforms. And then we had different ways, approaches of tackling this issue, being unable to bring it to a possible positive end. And as a result, there was need to bring back these voices together under a common platform for concerted action and looking at greater impact. Why not? That is what led to our organizing. And I was one of the forefront leaders to organize this. I was the one in charge of mediating between the convention and leaders of the non-state armed groups so that they will allow our women to leave the community safely and to converge to the national capital city for the convention. And also trying to talk, serving as interface with the diplomatic missions in Cameroon and with the government. Now, what have been some of the key challenges which women working to restore peace in my country do face every day? Women peace builders and humanitarians face lots of challenges working in local communities and beyond, and they are doing a remarkable job to overcome them. They face discrimination and unconscious bias simply because they are women. Yes, the women are exposed to the threats of kidnappings and killings. My own children too were kidnapped. I was arrested in my own house twice at gunpoint, and the gun, they hit my head with the gun. I had to stay in the hospital for many weeks. They burned my humanitarian car, and they ransacked our office, kidnapped my collaborators on several occasions. The burden caused by the imposed lockdowns and ghost towns, inadequate funds to carry out planned activities, remoteness of communities in areas other than urban is a problem. Inadequate skills on safety and security, that is what the women face. Difficult access to carry out humanitarian activities, inadequate communication systems of most initiatives put in place. So what are the key recommendations which we can give with regards to all of this? Looking forward, we recommend that we organize an all-inclusive dialogue with all the key stakeholders participating so as to bring the war to an end. There should be a strong political will and commitment to recognize, protect, and support the work of women peace builders and humanitarian in the restive regions. Lobby for financial support to hold town hall meetings that will capture the perceptions of not only women, but other community actors and their recommendations to resolving the crisis for onward forwarding to the appropriate parties to the conflict. We need to strengthen community systems through community peace or social dialogues in order to de-escalate the conflict. There is need for continuous strengthening of capacities of community women peace mediators for more engagement at community level. There is need to lobby and advocate for the inclusion of women in all governance instances, making sure that they are not mere observers, but an integral part of all efforts in resolving the ongoing crisis. They should support women involved in the management of conflicts with adequate communication tools, means to be able to effectively and efficiently carry out their peace-building mediation work within a difficult and challenging armed conflict and COVID-19 context. Look at what happened to me today. And because I hadn't the means to have to afford the other modems, I was stuck, if not of my collaborator, who happened to be one of the modems, which I'm using to talk to you today. That's what we're talking about. There is need to enhance livelihoods for persons affected by the crisis, both agricultural and non-agricultural, especially through economic empowerment and training of entrepreneurship. Support local women peace builder to organize mobile trauma and mental healing sessions, as well as intergenerational dialogue, social cohesion, and resilient building within communities. Now, to conclude, what do we say? We say that women have proven that they can effectively lead in times of crisis. And within a COVID-19 context, with no exception. It is therefore time to engage local women peace builders and women's rights organizations in all areas of decision-making during and after COVID-19, and provide them with long-term funding that they need to adapt their work to the new realities of working within a hostile environment characterized by war and COVID-19 pandemic for a peaceful tomorrow. Thank you for your kind attention. This was your humble servant, Omam Esther, Executive Director of. I'm here for you. Be there for me through the questions which you're going to ask, and all of us to answer them. Thank you.
Do you have any questions to Esther that she can answer? Yes, Ibrahim.
Yeah, thank you so much for this forum, and thank you, Esther, for your wonderful presentation. I just have some few questions. First is, what kept you going, irrespective of all the challenges? What is that motivating factor? Secondly, how have you been able to raise support, collaborators that bought into your vision, that made you to sustain your organization, sustain the vision up to this moment? The third one is, how do you raise others that can support what you're doing? Because we all have limited time here on Earth, so how do you replicate yourself? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for those very interesting questions. Coming to the first one, what kept me going? I'll tell you, it's not been easy. It's not been an easy journey at all. The level of violence, the rates of killings, prompted me to get into peace building. When I saw pains and misery around me, given my background, where I come from. I come from very lowly background, where we had no support. And given that the communities where I work with live below the poverty line of $1 a day, coupled with all what you can imagine that destroying properties of people and so on, I had to get into this. And getting into this, when I was doing it alone for Bakassi with my organization, it was easy. I would say it was much easier than now because it was our organization doing it. But bringing so many women on board with different perspective, different way of understanding, analyzing and handling, it was not easy. There were so many setbacks. You know, there was so much backbiting, backstabbing, and then even to the point of going to meet the non-state armed groups, telling them that kill that woman, kill her family, so that she leaves the scene. This is how bad it has been. I got to a point of almost no return when my 2 children, I have 3 kids, when my 2 children were kidnapped, and I got words that they're going to behead them, because at that period, during that particular period, it was a very critical moment when they were beheading people they arrested. And you will not imagine my state of mind, though I stayed cool, quiet. I had a calm spirit, and people were wondering. And when my children were released, any other thing, whether they burned my car, whether they ransacked the office, and so on, did not matter. When they kidnapped my staff, 5 good times, not 1, 2, like 9 at a go, at some point 13, at some point 2, 3, 1, especially when I went to the United Nations Security Council to testify about the crisis, and I didn't say what people wanted me to say, because in this, the parties in conflict want you to embrace their narrative, to adopt their narrative. But I keep saying that women have their own narrative. People don't give us voices because we have the voices already. So what kept me going? 1, my family. 2, my immediate collaborators who were so cooperative, collaborating. And 3, the women's movement. Yes, our togetherness, the concern of the majority of the women who kept lifting up my spirits with encouraging words, to the point where when I had the breakdown and I was called to relocate, because I had support from Lifeline, Human Rights Defenders, and Urgent Action Fund asking me to relocate, to the point where when I relocated, everybody, most people, my family, everybody said, please, you don't need to continue this fight. I said, it is not my fight. If we don't do, many more will die, and it won't help in any way. If I die, many more will die. It won't help anyway. So when I regain my spirits, when I regained my self-confidence, and when I analyzed the conflict very well, I understood where my problem was coming from, and I picked up the challenge to confront the problem. It kept me going with prayers from my Christian community, most specifically, kept me going, and I decided to make a U-turn and come back. Because at that point when I stopped, and when others thought that they could do it better than what I've been doing, it was a standstill. And I kept hearing diplomatic missions, where are you? Where? What happened? Why are you leaving? It's impossible. When I kept hearing even the leaders of the non-state armed groups whom I met in the United States saying that, we are not the cause of your dilemma. It is women around you who went and paid off some people. It is civil society and so forth. So you understand that a support system in this case is needed. And I had that support system. I had that support system, my family, my collaborators, the church, and the women. These 4 kept me going and made me to make the U-turn and be where I am today. And it is when I made the U-turn that I even made the most of impact from other than what I had even done, from what I can say, because that's when I started having all the awards I've had. I think this is a fifth award I'm getting, all the awards, all the recognition, and so on. And my narrative changed because I decided to confront and I decided to communicate directly, analyze everything, and make sure that I adopted a do no harm communication approach. Our objectives were clearly communicated, both to government and to the non-state armed groups. I discovered that probably it's because we're not communicating a lot to both parties. That's why we were having those problems. And after doing that analysis, I think it improved a lot. And today, as I can tell you, the threats of my life and that of my family have greatly reduced. How were you able to raise support? It's very difficult. I would say it's very, very difficult. When we created a voice space, nobody will give us anything. We had nothing. I called the women and I told them that this is our country, these are our people dying. We must begin by ourselves. And most of us are volunteering within our organizations. We know to humanitarian response.
I think Esther, if you hear us, we can't hear you right now. I think we have lost you. Yeah, and now she dropped out. Yeah,
we can't see her also. I think she is not there.
Oh, this is so touching. I'm so emotional to hear this and to see how courage people can be and what it also needs, right, to really move things and to not focus on you as an individual, but looking at the results and the community and the whole of it, which is, I think, something that needs to be grown over our human instincts sometimes. And I think it's so fascinating to listen to her and to hear her story. I think she's coming back, or the co-workers, like the co-workers phone just no.
Yeah, I think she answered very well, and it's creating some excitement in me. So that was a good answer. The only aspect that I wanted to add is how do we connect mediation skills to what she's doing?
Because here she is again. I just want to. She's logged in. Maybe this could be a next good question. I mean, there is 2 other questions that you asked. Esther, can you hear us? Sorry. I think I of course I can't answer your question if I'm on her. No, I thought she was coming back, but on her place. But in general, I could say that like the more mediation skills you have in order to also know how to conduct constructive dialogue, how to calm verbal violences, for example, and how to create dialogue in general, of course helps. But of course, there is another layer to it, and this is when it's about violence in a physical mean. Yeah, but I think all those processes have many layers and also many steps. So there is the process, the violent process, where mediation not always works out, and it's also not always the right method to deal with it. But then there is often stages before and stages after, where it's more about finding out about everyone's interests. Oh, here she is again. And then mediation is a good approach. The techniques and to give people a voice, to find out about the interests, to create this dialogue, to have an active understanding. Yeah.
I was saying that getting support was not easy. In the very beginning, we made sure that the women contributed among themselves, both financially and materially. And we use that to go and support the internally displaced families of particular localities. The numbers of displacement were so huge that we could not do for everybody. And we discovered that we could not continue it each time because we hadn't, I told the women, the only way and bring attention to the crisis in Cameroon so that even the international community could listen and support us was through advocacy, because by then the international community did not know what was going on in Cameroon. And so we started carrying out advocacy campaigns. And it is through the lamentation campaigns, press conferences and so on, that many got about us. And then the United Nations decided to come. And after that, we had the Swiss case. They said so much about it. What do we do? I said, now come and reinforce our capacities because we need some level of knowledge and skills in order to be able to adequately carry out advocacy campaigns. And this is what they did. And so at some time, it may surprise you to know that some women were already getting discouraged that by how? Let us write proposal. We've cried enough. We've lamented enough, we've advocated enough. Now it's time for us to get money to carry out. And I told them, advocacy is not all about money. It is about the power, the willpower, to cause change through the actions which we'll put in place. That with me, and after many years today, funding, I told them that you don't run after run coming to you when you do the right thing. And I think this is what they've witnessed, and it's happening to them today because I am no longer the lead of that code created. I had to give way for it so that I'll regain some sanity after the breakdown which I suffered. And what coaching and supporting the initiatives. I do this not alone, not the I. So whenever you hear us talking, you hear me talking about the we, us. It means that we make sure are also included in planning and delivery of whatsoever which we are taking, which we are carrying, which we are at national level or at international station. When you come to an organization, highly decentralized. We are highly decentralized. It will never be the me alone. It is all of us, each one carrying out their activities. Same are inculcated in women, making sure that there should be division of labor, so that when one or two are not tomorrow, the other where we stopped. Now you wanted to know also how it's not easy. It's not been easy. How do I replicate myself? I even asked myself many times. Many partners, 2 days ago, was it 2 days ago? Yes, 2 days ago, they was asking me, Esther, where do you get your energy? You are with, we need you, you are with the other people, we are here, you are here, and so forth. I said, no, I'm here because I still have time to be here. And that's why I bring women along with me wherever I go. When I am not, they can also take the leadership baton. And I will tell you, this is what is working. While I was still leader, I had an assistant, a lady, whom I was always taking along with me. moving. When I get into one embassy, she goes with me. Whosoever I was meeting, she was there. And when the time came that I should step aside, she was the one who took the baton of command, and she is the one leading, going to those embassies today and doing things. And I discovered that it was not enough. And I told the women that we cannot remain at regional level and national or international level. There is need to strengthen community systems. So my organization picked it up and put in place a capacity for rural women who hear the sound of the gun every day, who are highly traumatized, to get into peace mediation work. And so we created what we call the Community Women Peace Mediators. Community Women Peace Mediators. These are the women today who are going in the communities where I was supposed to go, but to see me are so huge that I cannot be everywhere. These are the women who go to the communities today, you know, preaching the gospel of peace and trying to mediate. And one good example is that in one of the towns, after training these community women, they went and looked for the non-state armed groups, called them, sat them down, spoke with them, negotiated, and told them to give way to their farms because they want to have access to their farms. In other communities, they told them, please, leave the classrooms. We want our children to go to school. Enough is enough. And in other communities, they told them, give us your guns. And 5 boys gave them 5 guns. This is to say that you have many Esthers today. You have many Esthers today doing that which I started doing. They are not enough, as they keep telling me, you know, empowering just 24. Out of millions, you see that there is need to train more, add them to the number which we have today. International Mediation Campus opportunity. First of all, I want to be thankful to the person who sent the link to me. And once I saw it, and I just saw mediation, because I just fall in love with that. When I saw that, I got into this program. So I am very happy because I'm going to tell the other women that there is this big opportunity which we should make use of, which is the International Mediation Council, in order to have more women strengthened to regional, and then why not empowering the locals at community level. Now, I bet you the knowledge which I'm getting from this course, I'm to empower the community women peace.
Recording in.
I'm going to use it to empower them. So this is why we are talking. There are women just, and you have many Esthers doing humanitarian work. I was the first respondent. I was just respondent to humanitarian response. In my region, today we have 450,000 people supported. And there was no other woman. So I saw the need to bring more women on board and share our little experiences with them. After doing that, the United Nations through OCHA came and saw us and said, wow, this is something marvelous you're doing. Now we want to come on board, pick it from here, and then give you people the technical know-how, not only to you and the women, but to society. So you can look at the impact of one in impacting many others and lives. Thank you. Any other question? I hope I was able to provide clarification or answers to your questions or concern, Mr. Ibrahim.
Yes, beautiful, and thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Brother Me.
Is there any other questions?
Thank you, Yaya.
Okay, Esther, thank you so much. It was like a pleasure to listen to you, but it was also inspiring. It was emotional. It was really, it gives me a lot to think today, tonight, and the next days. And I think this will be the case for all of us who listened to you. And thank you also for the very kind words to the International Mediation Campus. We really appreciate that. And we are happy to see you in the next week. And oh, here we are. Here you are. So we can see you again. Thank you so much. And all the best for your work. Energy, courage, and a lot of and the community, as you said, that this is the strength of it also, that you work with many people and with a strong community. There was another, sorry, there was something in the chat. I joined it late. I might have missed something, but Esther, please, how did you survive all this as a woman? Okay, that was another question from Barakat. She asked, how did you survive all this as a woman? I think especially as a woman. Do you have a short answer to this, Esther?
Yes, please. I'll just go straight to say that I faced so many challenges. I was having a WFP project where I was supposed to feed 40,000 internally displaced every month. And the people who put blocks to my success for it were the men. You know, they even went as far as making fake videos. But when I learned about this, I confronted them and I told them. I confronted the non-state armed groups to tell me what I did. If because I am a woman, that's why I'm getting all the attacks and threats over my life. And at some point in time, I became victorious because they wrote a disclaimer letter, which was sent to all embassies, that they are not part of it. It is the fighters on the ground who are being instrumentalized by some men and some other women who do not want my work to progress. That's how I survived. And what I do is that before I move out of my house every day, who asked the question, Rebecca or who, Barakat? Okay, before Barakat, yeah. Before I move every day out of my house, I make sure that I analyze my environment. I do not tell people most often when I'm going out, where I'm going to, just to give some few examples. Because some men think that women are useless, women should always play the secondary position. This is the conception in my country and mostly in my community. And so when you assert yourself and then you come out to a certain level where you are being praised, you become a target. And because I know that I'm a target, I'm very conscious and I make sure that everything I do is analyzed. Every word I say out is analyzed. So I do the do no harm analysis. And this has been following us even in the work of Reach Out. All my collaborators, before going out to carry out work, we do respect the do no harm principle. Thank you.
That this is a problem because she get to speak, you know, to some United Nations councils, and then also she's going to Canada to talk about the situation there internationally. But sometimes, if it's online, she has to travel for hours to the capital to make sure that the internet is stable then, and so that she can have these discussions. And she said she shared with us beforehand that she said she's really tired from all this also traveling. I mean, I can imagine that this is a work that is already, you need a lot of energy to do that. And I just heard that, like you heard it also, what also happened to her and the family and all this, what comes along with it, to work mentally on that, but then also the traveling effort that she has now to spread the word about the work.